It is a Thursday, the 2nd of July, which is unbelievable. I can't even believe that. That's nuts. And the guest for the big class today is actually me. I'm going to get in on the fun and hopefully have some things to say to these wonderful young performers who are playing for us today. Today is actually me. I thought since I don't really need to spend a lot of time introducing myself, that I would just, for those of you who are newer to the class, remind you why it is I decided to do this. So, I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's a town in the mountains in the western United States. And when I was a kid, I had the incredible experience of having a monthly masterclass series that was put together by my mother and some other mothers of young musicians. And we got to play for the guest artists of the symphony and the conductors and the members of the symphony there, teachers at the university. And it was an unforgettable experience, both because of the teaching, but also because of the community that formed around it and that we got to play for each other. We were in school together, we saw each other there, but we didn't hear each other play except for in these classes. Fast forward to conservatory days when I went to the Cleveland Institute of Music, and we had a weekly violin class there as well, where I remember just sitting in awe hearing my colleagues and peers play pieces like Tzigane, like we're going to hear today, and all of the Bach sonatas and partitas, all of this amazing repertoire I got to hear for the first time, really, in those classes. So when we started this lockdown back in March, I had arranged for a class for my students at the Royal Northern. A friend of mine was visiting from California, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun to have him up to Manchester and hear my students? Well, that trip, like so many, got canceled. And we decided to hold the class anyway. We held it on Zoom. I think it was our first Zoom meeting back in the middle of March. And I thought, hey, this works pretty well. Why don't I see what I can make happen with a Zoom masterclass series? And here we are, class number 14. We've had, I think, almost 60 performers. They've been from all over the UK, all over the United States, Germany, Austria, Scotland today, Chile last week, Mexico, Canada. We've had a huge range and repertoire from Bach to, we haven't had anything super modern. That's too bad. But Bach to jazz to orchestral rep, we've really covered a lot. So it's been a really wonderful highlight of my weeks, and I know for other people it has been too. This is our last week of classes. Last month of classes. We'll have 3 more actual classes, and then I have an announcement about the 30th of July, but I think I'll save that to the end. And let's get into the music. So the first performer we have today is Lisa Rauchbach. She's from Germany. She's playing the Siciliana from Bach's G minor solo sonata. Beautiful, beautiful playing. Yes, everyone's clapping. Can you hear me? Mark's in the midst of unmuting you. You'll be available in a second.
Just don't try to unmute yourself because I'm actually you can't unmute yourself, and so I unmute you and then you mute yourself again.
Okay. Everything good? Almost good.
That is really weird. Now I can't do anything, so I am going to re-enable, and Lisa can unmute
Okay.
herself.
Now, yeah,
There we
It's
go.
all good now.
yeah.
Okay, great. So, beautiful playing, really beautiful Siciliana. I really loved the sense of line that you created, both in the melody voice and in the more bass-like voice in it. That's one of the challenges in this movement of Bach, is to keep the two voices linear and not just have the chords be sort of vertical. And I thought you did a really beautiful job with that. Your intonation is also very, very fine. So, good work with that. Before I give you a couple of my ideas, I'm going to ask you some questions. So this is sort of typical for me to ask a bunch of questions before I say anything. Have you played the other sonatas and partitas?
Some, yeah. But I think it's my first complete sonata which I played. I played some movements of the others and the third partita as a complete work.
Great. So that was my next question, which is, have you learned the other movements? I know you were considering playing the presto, so I knew you knew that. But have you learned the first two movements as well?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And when you think about the four movements of the sonata, could you, I know English isn't your first language, so this is maybe not so nice to ask, but could you describe the character of the different movements for us?
Yeah. So the first one I think is pretty improvised and yeah, it sounds very free. I think all those yeah, I don't know the English word, like the improvised character and all that stuff, but in comparison, not such a bright movement, I would say. And the fuga, of course, also has very powerful parts and is really strong, has a strong character. And
good.
Yeah, and then in comparison, I think the this movement is really the movement of hope. I think it's such pure sound and this rhythm which flows through the entire movement. And also the key changed and all that stuff. It's yeah.
And then the presto?
Yeah, that's, I think, the powerful ending. It comes out of nowhere somehow, and wouldn't expect that. It makes a really strong ending and virtuous.
Yeah, great. So that's wonderful. I'm glad that you think about them in that way.
Mm-hmm.
To me, this movement, the Siciliana, is not only this little ray of hope in the middle of a very dark sonata, but it's also maybe, and maybe you don't agree with me, maybe it's a little bit sweet as well. Sweet and innocent.
Yeah.
Where the other movements have fire and vigor and they're very fiery. They just have a different quality in this movement. And I'd like, if you agree with that idea, I'd like to explore ways you could find more of that quality in your sound, because it sounds still a little like, not having heard the rest of the piece, it sounds a little serious.
Yeah.
Okay. And part of that is the difficulty that it's not a comfortable movement in the hand. So you have to consider how you get from thing to thing to thing, because they don't just happen, right? So that was one idea I had. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you about is if there's anything in particular you would like to be able to do better, or that you would like help with. Because if there is, maybe I can help. Maybe not, but we could.
Yeah, for me personally, the like polyphony is pretty hard to, yeah, get those two voices together, but on the other hand, still have like these two different lines.
Okay.
And maybe in addition to that, like keeping the big phrases and not getting lost in, yeah, looking how does this work and this and.
Yeah. So, and those, you know, and me hearing you for the first time, those are things I think you're doing very well. So there are obviously things on your mind. So well done with that. Let's talk about. Or I want you to play again, but before you do, I just want to share with you a little bit of a. I posted this on Facebook today, but when I was thinking about this piece today, I decided to listen to a bunch of recordings. Not my favorite recording, and to be you know, completely honest, I only listened to one of them all the way through. But I was really delighted by the variety of tempos that I found, ranging from 60 to the eighth note to almost 120. I mean, twice as fast.
Yeah.
This is astounding that a single movement of Bach could sustain that variety of interpretation. So if I ask you to do things that aren't comfortable for you, just know that there are a million ways to do this. And there might be some things that appeal to you more or appeal to me more, but that they're all, not every single thing is valid, but most things can work, okay? So why don't you play from the beginning again?
Yeah.
And play the first 4 bars, or until the bass line returns in the middle of the 4th bar. And could you think more than anything else about the feeling of hopefulness that you want to achieve? And if a few other things go by the wayside, that's fine. Good, that was beautiful. So I thought already it had a little bit more lightness to it. It didn't feel quite so serious. But what are the different things you can do to make it sound brighter or sweeter? Or
at first I thought if I could play it a bit faster, maybe it gets more light and not that heavy. And then articulation a bit, maybe not, yeah.
So I want to talk about articulation with you. Yeah. Because I noticed 2 things in your performance that kind of lodged in my brain. One was that sometimes, quite often, you get a little bit of sound, extra sounds between notes. Are you aware of this?
Yeah.
You are. So sometimes you get this little, it's your bow traveling on the string, not catching the double stops quite together. So sometimes you get that, which maybe takes away from the articulation that you intend. The other thing I noticed is I don't know if you're consistent and if you're really choosing your articulations or if they're coming out.
Yeah.
Are you aware of that as well?
Yeah.
A little bit. So sometimes, I'm just grabbing my violin here. Sometimes you would do something like 3 separate notes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it might be with a connection. So those sort of slips of intent take away from your feeling. So what if you play the same bit again, and I promise we won't spend the whole time on the first 3 bars, but try it again and really pay attention to where you connect. If you're playing or make sure you're playing what you want.
Yeah.
Not just what's happening. Do you want to try?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I could feel you thinking about it, and it's hard to do. Did you do things that you liked? Was there anything you thought was not a good choice?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I played those chords which I thought are in one line. I try to like put them all together, and yeah.
So a lot of, and probably be talking about this all day, all evening. A lot of what I like to try to figure out is what notes belong together. Which ones should be joined? Which ones are friends? Which ones really don't want anything to do with each other? And which notes are fine being next to each other but don't quite want to touch.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about which notes want to belong. I'm going to ask you to try something differently now, which is to play maybe more detached, the notes that are detached,
Mm-hmm.
and more connected, the notes that are connected.
Okay.
So here, you play up the string bit. Is that your bowing? Down, up, up? Yeah. You can still detach. Then here, if you only had to play one part, it would be very easy. Because we have the hard finger exchange with the left hand, it's hard to make that legato, but you can cheat. Maybe you're already cheating. I can't see. But if you're left hand, your second finger needs to roll over to the E string, yeah? But your bow doesn't have to. So I'm playing, but I'm playing. It's a tiny, tiny little cheat that will help it sound legato, actually. Just try that measure, just that bar. So detach the first bit,
yeah,
and then really slur the upper line. Try again. Good job with the slur. Now, what if you lift, and maybe this is against what you want to do, but maybe you could lift every third eighth note. So. I'm exaggerating so you can hear it on Zoom, but yeah. Try to let them go this way. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it. I think I just have to work on it to, yeah.
So it's a different feeling of lightness.
Yeah.
That maybe has a little bit more dance to it. This isn't a partita, it's not a suite of dances, but it is a Siciliana, which is a dance. So anytime you can find things that will come this way, then when they land, they'll have more grace,
Mm-hmm.
which is maybe the other thing I was missing a little bit was a feeling of gracefulness,
Yeah.
right? Which whatever speed you play,
Mm-hmm.
it needs to be there, that
Yeah.
feeling of gracefulness. So that's a musical thing you can think about throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's not to say that it's right or wrong, but there are places like I'm looking ahead. Oh, towards the end, if you have sort of this lilty feeling within the beats, I think it'll help you find the light, the
Yeah.
smile in it. Because
Mm-hmm.
the other movements of this don't smile.
Yeah.
They have points. They might have one chord change that feels joyful, but then it's just right back to it, right? This movement smiles almost throughout. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you about is how, when I first mentioned the little bits of noise between your strokes, is that something you've practiced for to think about, or do you have ideas about that?
Yeah, it's definitely something I am working on.
Okay, so how have you practiced? Pick a spot. Maybe, do you have bar numbers?
Yeah.
How about bar 8? Bar 8 is a very difficult little twister, right? It's got lots of problems in it. And that was one of the places where I felt like you had these little sounds between the notes that maybe you don't want. So how have you practiced something like that?
I think I would try to stop between the
Can you
different.
show that? Just play that bar. Play it slowly. Play up to the run, and show me what you mean.
Like this to set it and then.
That's great. That's exactly the right instinct. When you set the bow, where does the motion come from?
When I start playing, or when I.
To get to the right spot, to catch both strings together, how do you do that? Is it your hand, your wrist, your shoulder, your arm?
Probably my arm, but yeah.
Probably your arm, and what are you probably using too much of?
Yeah.
Which? Do you know what you're doing too much?
Yeah.
You're using your wrist
Mm-hmm.
instead of the whole level. So right there, if you play, you go from the A and E string to just the A string, right?
Yeah.
So I'm exaggerating. Then not. That's too big a motion, but I want you to see what I mean.
Yeah.
Can you try the same thing with the stops, but really using your arm level to place the bow on the strings? That's the idea. Now, to do that, can you try it one more time, but leave the bow on the string?
Yeah.
So it travels from one string to the other on the string. And one other thing, sorry, you be sure that when you raise your elbow, you're not raising your shoulder.
Yeah.
Okay? That last crossing was really good. Did you feel on the 3-note chord you didn't have enough? So when you go through, and that's exactly how I would practice it, is finding the levels. But make sure you're using the right thing to get there. Because then if you balance your bow on the 2 strings, all you have to do is pull it. You don't have to push it down, or the arm weight will engage both strings at the right time and pull the sound together. That's fantastic. Really, you did that so easily. Sometimes that takes forever, so that's great. I think I had one other thought. Oh, I had a question for you about the very end.
Mhm.
So when I learned this piece, I studied off of the Galamian edition, the old-fashioned Galamian edition, but we did have the autograph in the back that you could always refer to.
Yeah.
And now I'm sitting here looking at the Henley edition, and there are different notes that I'm not used to, and I'm trying to get them into my head. But the one thing that I really love about the way this one is notated is the last bar. And I wonder if you've ever considered not slurring those two notes.
Ah. Mhm.
It's new to me, but when I practiced it, it kind of cures a really difficult problem, which is the end of this movement.
Yeah.
This movement it's you get kind of comfortable by the end. You've got this big you're back at home, you know how to play this. And this always sounds like a big whine. Because it's so difficult, but
Mhm.
I think it's worth considering.
Yeah, it sounds very sweet.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the sweetness of it. And if you, we're about out of time, but and we can't do it on Zoom. But one of my favorite things to do when I'm teaching this movement is to play it as a duet.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done that with anyone?
Yeah.
Because it's so, when the violins play together, it's so easy and sweet, and it's like you're walking arm in arm down a path together. And then when you have to do it all on one instrument, it becomes this sort of serious thing. So see if you can remind yourself of that feeling, or play it again with someone if you can, and enjoy the sweetness of it, because then you have to play the presto, and like you said, it comes out of nowhere and takes off like a rocket and doesn't stop. So great. Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to hear you.
Thanks for having me.
And I hope to hear you in person someday.
Oh yeah, that would be.
Thanks, Lisa. So I think our next video, if Mark has got it queued up for us, is Jemima is playing some Wieniawski for us, the Wieniawski Legend. And unfortunately, Jemima, I didn't mention this to you when we spoke. We're going to stop it partway through, so don't be shocked when that happens. Terrific. Great playing. There you are. I'm just going to pin your video. Mark's going to unmute you, and we'll be set to go. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for that performance. Same sort of thing. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, okay?
Okay.
All right. So how long have you been playing this piece?
I've been playing this piece probably for about 4 months now, I'd say.
Okay, so all of lockdown.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
It's been your lockdown anthem.
Yeah.
Have you played other music like this? And by that, I mean sort of character pieces or salon music for the violin, short pieces rather than concertos or sonatas.
Can't think of any that I've done recently because I've done quite a lot of I've done quite a lot of Bach sonatas and concertos and stuff rather than sort of the individual movements.
This is a different kind of music, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you, if I had to describe what the difference is between, say, a violinistic showpiece or salon piece and something like a concerto, I might use words like intimate or personal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It tells a story, obviously, because it's a legend, Légende, right? I mean, it's got to tell some kind of story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most music tells stories, but
Yeah,
this one
definitely.
outright just says it's a story. So,
yeah.
So it's a different kind of character piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. And then I'm also curious, because I always like to know this when I'm seeing someone for the first time or just for a very short amount of time, if there's something about your violin playing that you've been working on that's sort of a major concern. Sometimes people are changing their bow hand or they're trying to work on their vibrato. What about you? Is there something?
Mainly in the left hand. I've got some sort of like double joint in my pinky finger, which means it's really hard for me to get it kind of curved round, so it's often quite straight and flat when I put it down. So I've been working a lot on that and kind of softening the wrist and the thumb so it's not kind of squished to the neck of the violin. So just getting that freedom in the wrist.
Okay, and anything with your bow arm that you've been thinking about?
Yeah, again, just kind of focusing on that freedom and the weight of the arm as well, focusing on sort of just sinking into the string more and making it kind of feel more easy.
Good. That's great to know. You have a beautiful, rich sound, at least that I can hear on the video, and that's wonderful to hear. And I also really appreciate like you're working all this stuff out, right? I mean, there are a lot of problems and like things, tricks, and they're not so tricky, but in terms of like left-hand pizzicato and things that we're about to hear in the Tzigane later today, but there are things, they're just problems that you have to address, and I appreciate the octaves and the chords and the double stop trills, that things that you have to learn how to do, right? So that I appreciate that you've been hard at work on that. The things that I thought I could help you with. Oh, before I do that, the other thing that I really wanted to mention to you, and the reason that I wanted to let the video play into the first phrase of the return, I really liked how you used a completely different sound and vibrato for the 3 statements of the first tune. And that's really on the right track. And we want more of that.
Okay.
Please, more of that. So more figuring out, I want this sound here, and it means I have to use this kind of bow speed and this kind of vibrato to get it.
Yeah.
Right? So hopefully I can help you with that a little bit. I wanted to talk to you partly about the way your bow arm sinks into the violin, so I'm glad that's been something you're thinking about.
Yeah.
More than anything about how the 2 sides work together.
Okay.
Or don't.
Yeah.
Because I think there are things that you do with your body that are getting in the way of, or making it harder for you to
Yeah.
Okay? That's really hard to get across on Zoom, but we'll try.
No, I understand what you're saying, yeah.
Okay, good. So that was one thing, and then I think I actually want to start with, and you're gonna hate me, but with the double stop section in the middle.
Okay.
What we're actually going to do is go to the really easy part, the open strings.
Okay, cool.
Okay?
That's
so
better.
I'm going to play from the fortissimo open strings, for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bars, a whole phrase.
Okay.
Okay? And I just want to see you play that again. And could you actually do me a favor? And right now you're faced a little bit this way. Can you turn your whole... Yes, thank you. Perfect.
I just have to move my stand, sorry.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that'll be better.
Cool.
Thank you. Okay, so before we talk about how to play this, I want to know from you what you're thinking. What is this part musically? Where are we in our story?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a massive contrast to the first half, especially I think that's kind of marked by the tonic minus major shift as well, and the fact that yeah, the first half is really kind of dark and it's almost quite closed off and like solitary, and here kind of the sun comes out and you've got this warmer sound because you've got the double stops now. So I think it's kind of just a massive change in mood and almost a relief.
Good. Yeah, all of that. And then this particular part of the major part is the brightest of all the brightness, right?
Yeah.
So when you start this major part, it's already a massive change like you described, and you have the thirds, and it sounds kind of not so different from the Bach in terms of how the thirds, how that sounds on the violin.
Yeah.
But now you've got I mean, just what is that feeling? Can you describe it?
Oh, I'm trying to think of the right way to phrase it. It's kind of...
Don't worry about the right way. Just start throwing some words out. I'll start.
Again, I'd say it's just this massive just relief and kind of outpouring of just kind of... Oh gosh, sorry, I don't know how to explain it, but
I can see that you're imagining it. So
yeah,
it sounds like, have you ever been? I'm sure you have because there are good places around. The top of it on a beautiful, warm, not too hot, warm, sunny day, the top of a hill. You've just climbed up this big hill. You get to the top,
yeah,
and you run down, or you roll down when you were a little kid.
Yeah.
That sort of feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it sounds like to me, of just like massively happy, joyful, joyous ease. Right? Relief.
Yeah. It's a massive kind of sigh, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Kind of like,
with the biggest smile on your face that you could ever imagine. Can you play it again? And just play the open string part.
Oh, sorry.
Good. So even though, as soon as you pick up your violin, I see you worry. Okay?
Okay.
Worry. You're about to play open strings. How many years have you been playing open strings?
Too many.
many years, right? So just play that 4-note chord. Good. Now, as you do that, instead of letting your violin come down, I'm sure you've heard this.
Yeah.
Can you let it come up? So you get taller instead of smaller.
Okay.
If I were in the room with you, I would grab onto your scroll and I wouldn't let you move it. So imagine that I'm standing there holding your scroll and and so there's resistance.
Okay.
I won't let you move it. Do the same thing. Good. That's better with the left side. Now, what about your right arm? Can you imagine that it's just coming around in a big circle like this onto the violin? Instead of coming around, I'm exaggerating.
Yeah.
But you're not coming this way, but I want you to come like this to the violin. So it has... Good. Now can you play... And this is going to sound absolutely ridiculous, but can you smile while you do it?
Okay.
Do you believe me when I say that sounds better?
Yeah.
Like it translates into your sound when
Really?
you actually have like a joyful feeling in yourself. So what is it? And we're not going to get into some psychological debate here, but what is it that makes you so worried when you pick up the violin? Think about.
Just like getting it wrong. I know not necessarily for the open strings, but kind of, I don't know, I think there's so many things to think about. Especially when playing this piece, that sometimes I feel quite overwhelmed by all of these different things, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to do this, which can be quite nerve-wracking.
Absolutely. And anyone who decides to be any kind of serious violinist, we have this streak in us, right? That makes us super, we get all perfectionist and we think everything has to be tidy and neat and beautiful, and you don't want to, but, and I'm the same way, absolutely the same way. I get very, very down on myself about how I'm playing sometimes, but
same.
Here's the thing that I want you to try to remember is nothing bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
It really won't. Nothing bad is going to happen. And if you throw yourself into the sound, now I'm going to make you go back and play the thirds, which are quite a bit harder.
Yeah.
But if you throw yourself into that with the same sort of lightness and joyful feeling, it's not going to be harder.
Mm.
And in fact, it'll be easier, and it'll come out in your sound. So let's go back to the beginning of the major section. And before you play it with the double stops, I want you to just play the melody line. Okay, so we'll simplify it a little bit. But I want you to, more than anything else, think about the feeling that you want the listener to have when they hear this. Mm-hmm. So they've just gone through this whole tragic, I don't know if it's a love story or epic tale that ends in doom and gloom, right? It's all murky and mysterious. And then you have that one major note that changes everything.
Yeah.
And now you're going to play this. Okay, so just play me the melody. Great. Was that happy enough?
No, probably not.
Not quite. So what can you change? I know we'll have to add the thirds to it, but what can you change in the way you're approaching it and the way you're playing it to make it sound a little bit more uplifting?
Maybe have like a brighter, kind of faster vibrato so it sounds more vibrant.
That's a great idea. Try that. Good. And now let's think about your bow, because that was much better with the left hand, and that'll be hard to carry over into the thirds, but you can do it.
Yeah.
So what about your bow? What could your bow do to help make the sound more uplifting?
Maybe use more bow?
Maybe. Maybe not use the same amount of bow all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, try that. Good, good. You hear that starts to have a little bit more,
yeah, definitely,
sort of expectation to it. What's the next thing I want to hold? So I want to try one more thing just with the way that your left and right are moving. So I already asked you to hold your violin more stable, which you're doing. Now, if when you're playing an up bow, your violin and bow come together, and when you play a down bow, they move apart instead of.
Okay.
So you have, watch once. So they're moving to sort
Yeah.
of against each other. It's contrary motion. Can you try that?
Mhm.
Good. Can you try it just on a single note once, so you really get the feeling of the contrary motion? So start at the frog, where you almost feel like, this will exaggerate it, like you're bringing your violin to the bow. Can you just try this without making any sound? Good. Now travel in the air and have yes. And now come back to the frog and then back to the tip. And instead of, that was good. And this is very hard to explain over Zoom.
Yeah.
Instead of rotating with your shoulder, can you just stand on your left foot? Okay, so your left arm's not going to change.
Mhm.
But when you come to the frog, it'll come this way. And you go to the tip and you stand on the left foot. Frog, this way. Left, stand on the right, left foot. And then do that with a straight bow. Better. Where should your tip be? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. So now try just on a single note. Good. And now play the melody with that fast vibrato that you talked about. Good. Now I would just, you'll get this, it takes a little time.
Okay.
When you go into the faster moving stuff, you started to do parallel motion
Oh, okay.
instead of contrary. Watch in a mirror, you'll catch it and you'll see it. Now let's put those thirds back in. Let's just see what happens. So keep this sound in mind, that vibrato in mind, that way of using your bow in mind, and now you're just playing two notes at once.
Yeah.
Oh, don't now see you're worrying already. Stop worrying. Good. Now, especially the first bar of that. The vibrato was beautiful. The thirds were balanced. It was all working. When you got to this, I saw what you meant with your pinky that you're struggling with a little
Yeah.
bit. Is that the kind of thing you're having a hard time with?
Yeah, it just won't, yeah, it just kind of flattens itself.
What if instead of, and it's absolutely a valiant thing to try to get that pinky to curve.
Mm.
Mine also is double jointed. I know many people, many violinists with double jointed pinkies. It just is, especially if your hands are a little bit smaller. It's just the
Yeah,
way.
mine are quite small.
What if instead of worrying about curving it, you worry about softening your palm?
Okay.
Just try that. Just try that third. See how straight my finger is?
Yeah.
Not a big deal. Now, when you have to play the sixth, when you have to go back to the E, just lean your first finger back. It's much easier to reach back than up.
Sorry, can you repeat that? I'm a bit confused.
Yes, so if you're trying to stretch upwards like this, it's very difficult. But if you reach back,
Oh, I see, yeah.
really long ways. So reach back with one. Balance your hand to 4 and reach back with 1. Try that.
Just on that third?
Yes. Yeah, how does that feel in your hand?
Better, yeah.
It should feel better. And the thought of keeping your palms soft will really help, because if there's any tension across from your thumb,
Yeah.
feel that, and you know what I'm talking about, right? When the
Yeah.
thumb is tight, you'll feel that in your palm. And
Mm.
sometimes your thumb doesn't listen when you tell your thumb to release. It says, no, I'm holding on for dear life. I'm not going to release. But if you tell your palm to get a little softer, it'll do it. Okay, so that's something I would think about there. And I really want to find a way for you to lighten up your demeanor when you, like, your feeling when you
Yeah.
get to this part, so that you can just really love it and really really enjoy the sonorities, even though it's hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Now let's talk a little bit about the very opening. We only have a couple more minutes, but you played it so beautifully, and I want to hear it again. And I want to think more about the way that you use your bow, and let the left hand, not let the left hand take care of itself, because you need to think about it, but see if you can switch your focus to really, I read in your bio that you're also a singer, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to study singing, is that right?
Well, yeah, I've got a choral scholarship for uni, so.
Yeah. So when you sing, I'm sure you think about, I'm a terrible singer, we're not going to listen to that, but I'm sure that you think about how your breath travels through the sound. Is that?
Yeah.
So can you imagine that your bow is working like your breath?
Okay. Yeah.
So when you spend more bow, you might get more sound. Like if you give more power to or more support, you'll get more sound in your singing. So it works the same way. Try the first two lines.
Okay.
Try to talk. It's so hard to interrupt when you're on Zoom.
That's all right.
Do you have that memorized?
Probably, yeah.
Probably you do. So I want you to forget about the music, and if you play a wrong note, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And I want you to imagine. And are you alone in the room? Is anyone in there with you?
Yeah, no, I'm alone.
You're alone. Okay, so behind your computer screen, this is really strange to do, not in a room together. I want you to imagine a point beyond your computer screen, and I want you to look at it.
Okay.
And I want you to play, like if you were singing in a hall, a concert hall, you'd sing to a point, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with the violin. I want you to send your sound like through your computer screen to a point on the wall. Just that same passage. Tell me how that sounded to you.
Better than before, yeah.
In what way?
It just, I guess it sounded more kind of open, and more like a performance, as if I was in a concert hall, more kind of filling the whole space rather than just being at the front. Or
Right. So I thought that was beautiful.
thanks.
There are things we can work on. I mean, you can sustain your sound more. You can vibrate to the ends of the notes a little bit better. There are all these things. But if you play like that, is it harder or easier?
More easier.
It's much easier.
Yeah.
Right? And does it take a little bit of the stress or the pressure out?
Definitely.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Practice like that. Even if you're practicing something like that big octave shift that's uncomfortable and difficult.
Yeah.
Practice with that in mind. I actually have, you can't see it here, on the top of my bookshelf and where I practice, I have a lineup of rubber duckies. I play to them. They're my friends. I play up to them. And it helps. It helps to have something that you're focusing on delivering your sound to. And remember that, I mean, we spend so much time playing alone, working on things that we don't like.
Yeah, and quite small rooms as well.
Yeah, and it can make us feel sort of small and down. And so anything you can do when you're practicing to change that, like flip that switch for yourself, even when you're practicing the technical stuff. Okay?
Yeah.
So beautiful job. Thank you so much for playing for us today.
Thanks for having me.
And I hope to meet you in real life sometime. And thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. We are moving from Wieniawski to Ravel. And we have a performance of Ravel's Tzigane from Helena Rose, who just today is celebrating her graduation. So everyone applaud her for that. This is not the way she intended to celebrate, but we're so happy she's here with us. Tzigane, and we'll hear just a portion of it. terrific. We had to get through. We had to give you the chance to show off your great left-hand pizzicato.
Oh, pain of my life.
Really well done. So that was your final recital, correct?
Yeah.
What an amazing thing to have accomplished. Really well done.
Thank you.
How do you feel about this piece? That's a big question, but I'm just curious.
I don't know. I mean, I've spent a whole year both learning it and researching it, because I did it my dissertation on Tzigane, and whether a more in-depth understanding of like the gypsies and the Hungarian style that it's written in, whether that helps create a more authentic performance. And then it tied in my whole year together, so I'm quite emotionally invested in it, I would say. And I've never really played any sort of really virtuosic kind of Hungarian music before, so it was a real learning curve, so it's been quite a journey with it, but I really love it now. I really feel like I've got to know it, and it feels just really ingrained, so yeah.
Great. Well, hopefully it'll be a piece that you have an opportunity to play throughout your life. It's a lot of work. I'll tell you, I played this on a recital, my master's degree, I think. And I did not have an easy relationship with this piece. I learned it because I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever heard, and I wanted to play it. And then it just kicked my butt. I mean, it was, and I didn't play it very well. And I'll tell you, I haven't thought about it since. So when Donald said that you were going to play this, I was actually really thrilled, because it meant that I get to have a new relationship with this piece.
Oh, good.
So thank you for that. I have not spent nearly the amount of time with it that you have, and we're not going to talk about the tricks very much, because you do them very well, and it would take me months to be able to do that. But what I do want to ask you about, a little bit just about violin playing, and then we'll apply it into this piece. I'm so glad to hear that you've done all this research. When I played it, it was the Dark Ages, and we didn't have amazing things like Wikipedia and YouTube, where you could just say, oh, what's a luteal? Oh, look. So that was fun for me this week as well, to get to really actually hear the sound of it. I have played a lot of Ravel's music. So I've spent a lot of time with the string quartet. I played the duo quite a bit, and the violin sonata quite a bit. And there are things in this that, aside from the whole gypsy airs sort of Rhapsody de Concert feeling, that I think are pure Ravel. Yeah. And maybe we could think about some of those things a little bit. Because one of the things that I think he does incredibly well, and especially, well, throughout the movement, but the cadenza, is he creates this rhapsodic improvisatory feeling by writing in incredible detail.
Yes. Yeah.
And when you can internalize the detail in such a way that it sounds like you're making it up, it's something very special. So there were places I thought you did that really nicely, and there were places that I thought we could have been a little bit more attentive to what's on the page and see what it brings to it. And then if you don't like it, don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's talk just a little bit about your approach to the violin first. I'm going to ask you the same question I've asked the others. Is there something with your violin playing that's been particularly on your mind in terms of changing or working on?
Yeah, for the last, well, for my entire degree, actually, we've been working on my bow arm, because for many, many years, like, I always had a very rigid bow arm, and it wouldn't, I have quite a tendency to droop my elbow, so I get this kind of dead swan thing going on. So we've been working a lot on, like, Donald has an amazing bow arm, and sort of getting this really nice circular motion, and it's just been retraining my whole sort of brain, and really trying to integrate that into everything that I'm doing. Like, once I've worked on something for quite a long time with the idea of this bow arm, it's fine. But it's when things get more difficult, like in Tzigane, and I tend to forget about it because everything else takes over. Usual story. But yeah, I think that's the main thing that we've been having issues with.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, not so different from the tendency that Jemima had with her sort of moving the two sides of the body this way rather than counter to each other. I feel like if you could incorporate what you're doing with that circular motion idea with a little bit, well, a lot more under the violin, so that the violin isn't constantly being pulled out from under your bow.
Yeah.
That's something that you've talked about as well?
Yeah. Sort of in amongst like the bow arms. So yeah.
This is something that the way both of our cameras are set up, you're not going to be able to see it. But what I want you to try, and we'll try just with an A minor scale to start with. 1 octave, first position, easy, right? I want you to actually bend your knees. Are you wearing flat shoes?
I'm wearing socks. So
I'm not wearing any shoes at all. So really just bend your knees, and with the bow, with this feeling that you were talking about of sort of drawing through the violin, but I want you to get your whole center of gravity. What bending your knees does is it changes your center of gravity from being up here to being down here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even without putting your violin up, try that. Just bend your knees a little bit and feel where you're sort of centered. You feel that change, and then stand back up and then lean forward a little bit, which you tend to do. You feel how that then starts to come this way. Now sort of center your weight on your feet, and so you can feel your whole foot on the ground. This is very weird to do on Zoom. So you feel your whole foot, and then just soften your knees a little bit. And then put your violin up. Don't bring your bow to the string yet. I just want you to enjoy that feeling of sort of being balanced and easy in your knees with a low center of gravity. Probably think I'm crazy.
No, that feels good.
And now when you bring your bow up to the violin, can you maintain that feeling and play a down bow? Just play an open A string. You feel what you do almost automatically when you pick your bow up. What changed? You can stand up normally.
Can I try again? I'm just going to try again, but did my violin go down a bit?
It does a little bit, but I can't see quite well enough. I think it's because you actually round a little bit through your not necessarily through your shoulders, just through your chest. You're bringing your shoulders in. As soon as you bring and I think you probably would do it even without the violin if you put your bow in your hand.
Probably.
Very old habit.
Yeah.
So get back in that sort of easy, just soft knees, low center of gravity. Your knees don't have to be super bent, just soft. And then put your violin up and keep that position. Now take a deep breath, and before you bring your bow up, lengthen your neck. Now put your bow on the string. You do that same thing with the circular motion you were talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Better. One more time.
Yeah.
You feel it. Good.
Yeah.
Good. And now, stand more normally and get the same. So when your violin comes up and your bow comes to the string, you're feeling that the center is sort of lower and broad across your shoulders, and it's just easy. The bow into the string is an easy act. Try.
Okay.
Now I want you to try it, and don't stop yourself. Don't correct mid. Just go right into the string. If it crashes, it crashes. Now, if I were there, I would take your bow, and you're getting a little bit of this angle on the string.
Oh, okay.
How do you fix that? Like
Pull.
that,
Yeah.
right? So let's do that once. Put your bow on the string in the middle, on the A string, and make it go a little bit further out towards the tip. No, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, perfect. Now, push your frog away. And then pull your frog all the way in without moving your shoulder. Good. This would be a good exercise for you.
Yeah.
You feel where you're uncomfortable. Tell me. You should be uncomfortable there.
Yeah.
There, you're uncomfortable, aren't you? Look at your bow. Do you see that it's straight? It's a little off, but straighter than it was, right? Okay,
yeah.
So now let's just forget about that. You can do that on your own time. Now just go back to your circles. Keep your body weight centered and kind of low, and make your big circles into the string. So your elbow is leading the way.
Mm-hmm.
Can you let this part of your arm lead the way?
Yeah.
Good. It's all very difficult, and you're gonna hate me that I made you do this on the live stream. But it's terrific, and I think you need to understand this. So when you come to the string and you think about it coming from the underside of your arm, what happened with the landing?
It was a bit smoother. Like it just seemed
It happened sooner than you were expecting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were suddenly on the strings, like a plane that is suddenly on the ground. It's not a good feeling, right? So what you need to figure out is what is getting in your way, and this would take some time to sort out whether it's your shoulder, your elbow, or your wrist. Which joint is causing your sort of hitch in that? And the other thing I'll just ask you to think about, and I'm sure you have, is that this cushion will help. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can pack that all away and think about it. Practice it with open strings, like you said. Anytime you're working on a new habit, you need to take it to basics, and then, like you, I think you probably were implying, incorporate it into a new piece. I changed my left hand position in the middle of a concert career. I changed how I was using my left hand, and I had to work it into every single piece. Anything I learned new was fine. Like if I learned it new with the position, it was no big deal. But if it was something I'd played 5 years ago, I had to go through and so you're absolutely right. But it makes it that much stronger to do that work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll leave that there, and I trust you to take it into your bag. Let's talk about Tzigane now. So I want you to play from the beginning again, because I want to hear it again. Play up to the octave. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So when I think about this piece, really any piece, I think I've already mentioned this. I like to think about what notes belong together. And what I was thinking about in your performance was what is a result of something else, and what is something new? Is that a question that makes sense to you?
Yes. Yeah.
I feel like you have a lot of events, and they're not related enough.
Okay.
And I wonder, and you know, this could be going against what you've discovered with sort of gypsy styling or what you're thinking about in that terms, but even from the first gesture, you've got, he gives you an eighth note rest, quaver rest, right? Crotchet rest.
Yeah.
Which to me says that this is in response or a reaction to the provocation of. So whether it's with time or sound or impact, I want to hear those two things as like a causative and a result.
Yeah.
Have you tried this that much?
Mm-hmm.
The first two gestures? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it feels weird because I think I've been just so set in one way of doing it, but I totally get what you mean about sort of keeping it, you know, one reacting from the other.
What is the reaction? So if that first thing, is it an announcement? Is it a entrance? What is it?
I think it's quite like a declaration. It's like,
declaration.
I'm here, like this is.
And is this the same person, different person?
No, it's. I think it's slightly different. It's sort of. I don't really know how to describe it, but like just a totally different character, sort of a sort of little sidestep almost.
Again.
Yeah.
And make that happen.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I think you might not agree, but by having a quicker intake of air on that rest, the yada, yada, that's what creates the anxiety of yada, if it's and then you have the long breath in the rest. So it's as much about the silences as about the music. So that and this is where I'll get on your case a little bit about the markings that I think are worth remembering. There's no accent on the first note.
No.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You actually know better than me. Is this an accepted edition now these days?
It's the only one. Well, it's the one I've got, the Durand. Yeah.
New Baronreiter.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So no accent. Forte. Yada. Then when you come back, same note, same rhythm, except accent and what else? Rest.
Yeah, no double dot.
So a tiny silence between them.
Mm-hmm.
Observe it.
Yeah.
And give me a different than you had at the beginning.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's slightly different.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah? And then you go on, and what does he change now?
The length of it's a semi-quaver instead of a demi-semi.
And what else does he change? And I think this is on purpose. I'm not a Ravel Tzigane scholar.
Yeah.
Where at the beginning he's marked, and Ravel does this. He marks the bowing. So like he gives you these down.
Yeah.
Which gives it the Hungarian sort of Bartok rhythm, yada, that sort of thing. Which maybe means your beginning one should be a little snappier. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Go on. Go from here.
Okay.
Okay. Beautiful. I'm going to challenge you to just think of, right now you're giving a different rhythmic quality than they're the same, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Leading, but and then not suddenly twice as fast or snappier or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Something to think about.
Yeah.
And also that whole, is that one line, two lines, phrasing wise? What do you think?
I feel like it's two sort of sub lines in a bigger line. I don't know, like I sort of have a broader overview, but
Because,
I sort of
but can you again think of sort of a cause and effect to it?
Yep.
So if this whole thing this is a result, right? So that they hang together a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
I
I'm
like
not sure,
I asked you to do it, so. But finding ways that the little snippets of music hang together or
Yeah.
react against each other, in a way that makes sense to you, obviously.
Mm.
And that is even true for things like on the second page, the part that you played so brilliant. There are pitches that were so brilliant, and then you played the trill. This is a result.
Yeah.
Of all of that, and you made it its own event.
Thing. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I think you get my point.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Some
Yeah.
of the little details that I would encourage you to look at again are back at the first time we hear our tune. Where his funny little accents are.
Yeah.
They're really charming.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is the point of them. They're like little raised eyebrows.
Uh-huh.
And it's not to the beats. Because he gives you accent. Accent. Swell.
Yeah.
Swell between the notes. It's not even. It's.
Yeah.
And it makes it all so cheeky.
Yeah, and it totally goes against your like what you think about sort of bulging, but
it's really it's ingenious how much he writes in that way. And we only have a few more minutes. Strangely, I don't know how that happened. I got obsessed with open strings. The tune. When you get into the creations. When I pulled this back out, because I knew you were playing it today, I pulled it out and I was like, wow, that is a really dumb tune. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's inane. I mean, it's just nonsense music, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if the first time we hear it in this setting, we've had this sultry sort of version in with the flats, and it's a very different feeling. Then we get to the open strings, you've got this tinkling luteal-like thing behind you,
Yeah.
right? And you're just playing this nonsense song.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if the first time you play it, you can let it have that quality.
Okay.
So that it's very casual. It's just the... And he gives you these stupid downbows. Yeah, you make that face, but if you don't worry about them, if you don't care about them, and then he gives you the stupid uppos. And so it's just casual, sort of snide, silly.
Yeah.
Did you try it? Yeah. It's just dumb. I think it should sound that way. Just
Yeah.
Just walking down the road playing this silly little song with your band behind you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. If you capture that quality at the start of it, then as you start to pull out more and more of your magic tricks, like that's what it feels like to me. Like you're a street magician, with a band, some strange I always thought of it as like like homemade instruments, playing the little stuff behind you, all this weird stuff, and you're this magician, and you have this silly little tune, and then you start to do tricks, which you're very good at, and I'm very bad at, but and it gets faster and faster and faster and faster because you're stirring up this magic pot. And then you come back to, and this is a musical question I want you to think about. Mm-hmm. When you come to the tricky bit at 8, he gives you 2 markings that I think you completely ignore. Do you know what they are? They're the only 2 markings in the music.
The accents.
No, piano. No? Piano.
Oh yeah.
Piano and the tempo. And poco più moderato.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It gives you permission to go a little slower, which you should take, because
yeah, I panic a little bit in that.
And you can play a little softer, just and this is your first bag of tricks that you're going to lay out, right? And then you get the snake charmer stuff. Another trick.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all just sort of these little things that you toss out, and they always come back to this silly.
Yeah.
But it becomes more and more and more magical as you perform more accomplished feats of violinistic craziness. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
It's maybe a slightly different way of looking at it.
Yeah. No, it's good because, like I say, I've been sort of so wrapped up in, I've just performed it a way that I've just had an idea set, but now it's like, what other different ways can I look at it now that, I've got time to be exploring these things a bit. So it's really good to have a different spin on things.
It applies to anything you play, really. I mean, if you find the things that sort of cause and effect, the notes that belong together, really look carefully at the markings that the composer bothered to put in. Ravel apparently was quite fastidious about things.
Yeah.
Did you notice he had a fascination with wind-up toys? Like he liked little...
No.
You know what those are?
Like, yeah.
Like he liked little things like that. And little, the inner workings of factories and things like that. Like he was obsessed with little gears. So yeah, I mean, it's worth looking at that side of the composer as well. Yeah. It's like the fantastical gypsy Hungarian business.
Mm-hmm. Okay? Yeah.
Well done. Congratulations again. Thank you for playing.
Oh. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me.
And hope to see you maybe in Manchester or somewhere sometime.
Hopefully at some point, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And on we go. Last not least, we get to hear some of the Mendelssohn Concerto. One of my favorites. I can't say my very favorite, but one of my favorites. This is Kai Cole. Kai is in Texas, and he's going to play the first several minutes. Uh-oh.
Hello.
Oh. Great. Well done. Thanks, Kai.
Thank you.
So, more questions. How long have you been playing Mendelssohn?
I've been working on it, I guess, since maybe 2 months ago.
Okay. Have you learned the whole movement? Have you passed the first movement? How far are you?
I'm still working on the first movement. Haven't gone past.
Oh, that's pretty new, actually. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked on it before, to be honest, like in the past, but.
Good. And tell me, this is a vague question, but how do you feel about this piece? What are your thoughts when you think I'm about to play the Mendelssohn Concerto?
Like musically?
Or just sort of your relationship with the piece. Do you love it? Is it exciting for you to play? Is it a task? Is it like, what do you think?
Well, I really like the piece. I think
Okay.
it's an amazing piece, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty difficult to play.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, when I play it, I just, I am, trying to say what I want to say, how I feel about the piece, and trying to express myself. But definitely the technical aspect gets in the way.
What are the things that you like about it?
Just the lyricism and the contrasting sections. Every section has so much character. And yeah, I mean, just so many beautiful melodies.
Absolutely. Great. One of the things I love about it and that I want to talk to you a little bit about is the different kinds of energy that come out in the first movement.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is very lyrical in a lot of ways, as you say. I mean, first of all, you play that incredible melody to start with, but it contains so much energy and different kinds of energy within it. And I think we can talk about how to make that energy come out a little bit more and in a more varied way for you, if that makes any sense. Same question for you. I've asked the others, is there anything with your violin playing in particular that you're addressing with Pasha?
Right now? I think he just wants me to play with good tone and in tune and in rhythm.
Good tone, in tune, and in good rhythm. Wow. Just that's all. That's all you need to do.
That's all he wants.
Simple. Well, you're doing a lot of that a lot of the time. So your sound is very clear. I really like how something I've been talking about today, how stable your left side is. Your violin sits on your shoulder in a really nice way, and it gives your left arm a lot of freedom. That's great. I'm curious, just because we're not in the same room, how tall are you?
Like 5'10".
Okay, so you're fairly. The violin looks quite small.
My arm, I have the arm span of like a 6-foot person. So my arm's a little longer, but
probably still growing. But yeah, it looks very small and comfortable on you. It's a nice thing. Your bow looks like you could add this much length to your bow and you'd have no trouble getting to the tip. So I was wondering if you were very tall. I'm not. I'm very short. So, I'm jealous of that sometimes. Okay, so I don't think I want to spend a lot of time with you talking about setup. There's one thing that you do that you're probably aware of and you probably are working on, which is there are times when you're playing fast notes when your elbow locks and you bow a little bit like this. Is this something you've talked about?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think in that recording, I don't know what it was. I think I was too much this way, and I didn't feel like really comfortable
There was
going
a little bit of
like that.
locked up business in your elbow in fast passage work. So we might touch on that, we might not, but just kind of keep that in your head if that comes up, or if it doesn't come up, maybe ask about it. Okay. But I want to talk about music. I want to talk about Mendelssohn. And my one more question for you: are you looking at a part that looks like this, or
Yeah.
are you looking at a Henley part?
Nope, I got the same one.
Sorry.
I got the same one as you.
Okay. So you should be aware, because it's the new day and age, that there are different editions now that are more or less edited. And I recently relearned this concerto after playing it many times off of this the Francescati international edition with changed fingerings, but basically that sort of old style editing. And last summer I relearned it off of the Henley part, and I was shocked, absolutely shocked at the differences. And some of them are really great. So it's worth getting a hold of that to
Okay.
take that. And if you're very clever and find a friend who's on, or a parent who's on Facebook, they can grab it off the Facebook page, because I posted it to them.
All right.
So it's just much more sparse in terms of dynamics, and there are some dynamics that are just absolutely in different places and are very
Okay.
Okay, so I might point a few of those. I've got both parts in front of me because I was pretty sure you would be playing off of this other one. Good. So let's talk about the beginning. What sort of mood does, not the melody set, what sort of mood does the orchestra set before you come in?
It's so like dark, it's kind of veiled, ethereal, but it's still like it's still like a thick sound, I mean, all the lower strings and everything.
Do you know it well enough to know what the violins play?
What?
Do you know the orchestra part well enough to know what the violins are playing underneath you?
Mm-hmm.
Can you try it? Show me. It
I
doesn't
don't
have to
know.
be perfect, just that's exactly what I do. And it's a. And what else is happening in the strings? What kind of rhythm do you have?
Other lower strings are doing that. You got the bass doing the pizzicato.
And what's the rhythm of the pizzicato?
Dun, 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 dun.
So what feeling does that kind of rhythm give the music? Dark, veiled, all of that's true. That's atmospheric. That's sort of the sound world. What's the feeling?
I don't know. Do you want me to say it's like a dance or something?
I don't want you to say anything. I just want you to think about it. So sometimes it's easier to define something by saying what it's not. So if the violins had like a European siren sort of feeling, instead of what would the difference be in terms of rhythmic feel? Like, what is it? One is sort of steady.
Yeah.
And the faster moving eighth notes are what? They're unsettling, right?
Yes.
Or unstable.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I hear it. And if the bass is played, it would be a really ordinary, kind of terrible piece of music. But if they did that, it would have a stability to it, right? But you
Yes.
get. So it's always urging it onwards. Dum, dum.
Mm-hmm.
So Mendelssohn, masterful composer, right, creates this atmosphere of sort of unsteady, murky, veiled, you called it, darkness to it. And then you come in with the melody that is, what, the same, different?
I don't know. I think it goes along with it. I do think it fits into it. I mean, there's a lot of contrast between the main voice and the orchestra, but
Yeah.
I just feel like there's I don't know, there's like a shining beauty to the pain in the melody.
I love that. Can you play the first phrase again? Really, really like turn up your imagination on what the orchestra's doing and play, yeah.
can hear you just a little bit. You're very quiet right now. I wonder why.
You're
Oh, wait.
extremely low, Cecily. Maybe try changing to the internal mic or something.
Okay. How about now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. That's really weird. Zoom changed my microphone on me. Huh. Okay. That's a first. So, pained beauty. I like that idea very much. What I don't like is you're not picking up on the rhythm underneath. So we just talked about that. So he could have written or just come in, but he wrote. And even the way that the melody goes, everything's anticipated. He's always kind of reaching forward to the next thing. All of it's suppressed in piano, right? In both editions, it's all piano. The orchestra's not making a tremendous amount of sound. It is a little bit thick, but they're not going to cover you because you're 2 octaves higher than everyone else.
Yeah.
So see if you can give it sort of a breathless anxiety within the beautiful sound.
I can't hear you again. Oh.
How about now?
Yeah, it's good.
So strange. Zoom is telling us it's time to end the class. It's not quite, though, because I want you to play it one more time, and I want you to play it. I'm just going to start planting ideas, and you can throw them out, but we're pressed for time, and I want to get this across to you. So I want you to imagine that you're telling this story, whatever kind of story that this melody is about, to someone who you know very well, a friend, a very close friend, and it's a secret, but it's incredibly important that they understand it and they understand every detail about it, and it's going to cause a epic disaster of some kind. Like the results of this secret, if it gets out, are going to cause an epic tragedy. But you really need to share your secret because you can't keep it in anymore because it's caused so much anxiety that you're walking around going and you have to get this melody out, but very softly. It's really soft. Try again. Good. I think that's a direction you could enjoy exploring. Can you hear me? Now I'm all worried you can't hear anything. You can hear me fine though, right?
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. It's okay. Good. All right. So that's one kind of energy. Now let's jump to another section. In fact, let's just go right on. So now everything changes because some part of the secret's gotten out, and someone gets angry about it and goes dum bum bee. So then you're stuck going, which is a very different kind of feeling in the rhythm. Okay? So can you play on from there and really capture that change in energy from the sort of undercurrent of whispers to outrage. Okay, so, and everything, I'm having really strange things on my end, but you can hear me still, right?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So that was good at the first part of it with the sort of outrage of that. And but it happens again, right? So you got that whole business.
Yes.
Again, so is it more or less? It's got to be more, right? Not more sound, but more energy, more frantic. And then when you get to something changes, right? In the feeling. And this is actually this difference is in both parts. The drop to mezzo forte. Somehow someone soothed the situation. So another change in energy, right? And then another one. And then you're going to hit that high note. Then you explode with the octaves. You get to the top. And then you have see what I mean about the kinds of energy that even in the first page, which we practice. So I'm going to practice the first page today. It's like it's one thing. The first page is like 8 things. Each one as important as the last and extreme. Like the feelings and the emotions and the sort of undercurrents of energy are extreme in this piece. And yet somehow it's really easy to think about the Mendelssohn Concerto as being this gentle, lyrical, beautiful thing. And it's not. It's full of crazed undercurrents of energy. You see what I mean? And then it changes.
Definitely.
Right, then it changes entirely. Even on the next page, you've got a bunch more of these sort of hyper kinds of energy, right? This. Like that's, again, it's stirred up, stirred up, stirred up, stirred up. And then you've got the big arpeggios, and then you come down to the G string, right? And then we change mood entirely. And I just want to skip to here and do one more thing with you at the second tune. So in your part, tell me how the second tune is marked. What are you looking at? I think it's the same. But I want you to remind yourself.
Yeah, pianissimo tranquillo.
Pianissimo tranquillo. And what does tranquillo mean?
Peaceful.
Peaceful, calm, right? So, can you play right there again? You play that really well. So what sort of feeling are you going for? Or what's your mood?
Like you're saying goodbye to a great friend of yours.
Oh. Well, that's wonderful. I like that a lot. Do you want them to leave?
No.
No, you want to hold them really close.
So you have to go, and you have to keep doing new things. You got to go on your way.
And that's why it goes on the way it does. That's really nice. So I would just challenge you to see how, and these are maybe, expressions that aren't so easy to talk about or so cool, but how tender, how intimate you can make that goodbye. You don't want anyone else to hear it. They're eavesdropping. So anyone listening to this melody, they're not really supposed to hear. And they happen to hear because you're playing the violin. But instead, so the difference would be, instead of playing with sort of an outward expression, you could even do it physically, that you have a like I would practice on the edge of too soft, too close, so that it's, pianissimo tranquillo for a second theme in a major violin concerto. That's amazing that he did that. And it's so different from the opening. So could you play it one more time and just whisper it? Whisper and imagine that no one can hear it except for the person you're saying it to. And then it starts to open up. But you have this one moment, this one phrase that it's just you and this other that you're telling it to. And you have the opportunity to make these sounds more special that way, more exquisite, just more magical. And then the next page, you have a totally new kind of energy, right? Still triplets, but suddenly it's light and bubbly and frothy, and maybe they didn't have to part ways after all. I don't know. But I would really encourage you to think about the kinds of energy, the different moods that they create, and then how you can bring them out in what you're playing, along with the different sounds that you're already making that are very beautiful.
Okay.
And really, and pay attention to what's in there, because like that triplet passage I just started is marked piano leggero. People often just kind of saw away at that. Like I'm playing my triplets and they're even and they're pretty in tune. But are they light and playful? Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. That's what I'm going to say. I think our class is done. Thank you very much for joining us today, Kai. That was amazing to hear you play. Thank you. And wow, the time goes fast. It's amazing. Everyone says that, and then I found it myself as well. So thank you for being here for the really big class. As always, I'm going to tell you about the next few weeks. Next week we have my dear friend and old teacher, Ian Swenson. You've heard many of his students play in the class. He'll be joining us from San Francisco next week. And I'm not going to tell you about the 30th. You'll have to come back to find out what we're doing for our last class on July 30th, but it's going to be amazing. So please stay tuned for that. And yeah, that's it. Good night. Good afternoon. Have a great day. Happy 4th of July in the States. Stay in. Don't go parties. And thank you. Bye. Oh, questions. Emily says questions. Jeez, you're right. Do you have questions? Sorry.
I have a question.
Emily has a question. Ask your question, Emily. I'm so sorry.
I was going to ask, if you were a student in the lockdown and it was like approaching the summer holidays, what would you do with your summer?
You'd ask me that. What would I do with my summer?
Yeah.
Oh. I'd try to find a way to go somewhere beautiful if I could, even for a day. That's on my list of things to do next week, is to get out of our corner of London and see something else. And I would try to come up with something attainable to accomplish. So I know, because I know you, Emily, I know you've got 10 weeks before the start of the next term or so. That's a long time, and that's actually quite a bit of time to, you have time to not accomplish anything and still get something done. So I would schedule a concert for a group of neighbors. I would decide I wanted to record something. I would look for online opportunities that are within your budget to try something new, because this is a period where trying something new is kind of easier in a way. Over the next few weeks, I'll be posting things that I find out about in terms of courses. A lot of people are running things at not high costs, and a lot of things are open for enrollment because it's all new. So I know it's a challenging time to figure out what to do with yourself. And I'd cut yourself some slack. We talked about that yesterday. So that you're not, what would you normally do on a summer holiday? You'd take a holiday of some kind. So give yourself leave to do that as well.
I had another question as
Okay.
like part of that is I feel like at college we're often told to be careful to not have like gaps in your CV. And I was wondering if that's something you're worried about. And yeah.
You're asking me about gaps in a CV. Well, I've got like a huge, massive gap in my CV. I played in a string quartet for 20 years and never did anything else. I'm the wrong person to ask. I think you just have to become the best musician you can. And that means finding as many opportunities as you can to grow as a musician and as a player and as a person. And if that means that you take a detour into something else for a little while, all of that is going to add up into who you are. So if someone's looking at your CV and saying there's a gap, then you're probably not the right fit for that, whatever that is. If they're seeing a gap and they're not just seeing who you are. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah. Others? Ross? Uh-oh.
Got it. Hi. If just because you got really excited about the Mendelssohn Concerto, I just want to know what your favorite concerto is.
Oh, I do really truly love the Mendelssohn Concerto. It's probably the concerto I've worked on the most times in my life, because I learned it when I was really young. I learned it as an undergraduate. I came back to it as a graduate student, and then I used it actually in an audition last summer. So it's a piece that I've reworked at many stages in my life, and I love it, and I love Mendelssohn's music. But you could get me going just as easily about the Beethoven Concerto, and just as easily about the Berg Violin Concerto. I mean, it's good music. So a favorite, probably a toss-up between Beethoven and Mendelssohn, with the Mendelssohn being more in my hands. So it's, I don't know. But you're right, I do get very excited about it. Guilty. Any other questions? No? I don't see any hands. Okay, now we're going to call it a class. See you next week. Bye, everybody.